After we ate our eggs, we went to go play. "Colors," she said. "Colors, colors." She reached upward to the plastic bag of crayons on top of her bookshelf. I handed them to her and grabbed her notebook. She ran to the carpet. "Open, Dada, open," she said. I opened the bag. She dumped all the colors onto the ground. She dug through her markers, picking the neon pink one that she always did. "Red," she said. "Pink, Nora, pink," I said. "Pink." I showed her the red one. "Red," I said. "Llama, llama." Usually she wanted me to draw llamas. We colored more, scribbling where we wanted. We drew deer, monkey, a flower, a moon, a cow, a rainbow, and "Bunnies," she said. "Bunnies, bunnies." She wanted me to put on her song. When it started, she lay down on the ground, and when it was time, she got up and jumped around, hopping and hopping. When the song ended, she asked for it again. Some days we'd listen to it 20 or 30 times in a row. She climbed into the cardboard box we'd been playing with. "Okay, ready, Nora?" "Ready," she said. I pushed her across the floor as fast as I could. She held on to the edges of the box. Her head flew back, and a smile appeared on her face. We went across the living room, drifting through the kitchen and back to the carpet, screeching on the brakes. I hurled myself into the couch, trying to get the biggest reaction from her that I could. "Ready, ready," she said. We went around again and again, until I was too tired to go again. I lay on the ground beside her. She pulled my hand upward. "Dada turn, Dada turn." "Ready, ready," she said. We went around again and again. When it was time to go, she refused any of her shoes. Instead, she wanted me to wear Mama's neon green sandals, both on the wrong feet. I set out all her shoes in a row. She chose her snow boots. We put on her sweater and her jacket. She didn't want to wear her yellow hat, only her pink bear hat. It had become too small for her. I snuck the yellow hat and her regular shoes into my pocket before we left. I carried her to daycare. On the way, she repeated all the names of her friends and teachers. I repeated them back to her. When we got there, one of her teachers had a plastic bag and was walking it out to the dumpster. "Found a little critter this morning," he said. "Squirrel?" I asked. "Rat," he said. "Great. It's getting colder." I changed Nora out of her boots and took off her jacket. She was a bit more clingy than usual, until she saw the craft that was set out on the table. Red felt hearts, glue, and plastic measuring cups. She ran off to go play. I went to the coffee shop to sit and edit my book. In my procrastination, I messaged Miriam, telling her that later we should go buy Nora a new bear hat that would fit her better. I wrote for a few hours. I went back to Nora's daycare, looking through the window of the door before knocking. I watched Nora in the corner of the room. She handed a ball to another girl. The other girl looked at the ball. She dropped it. Her and Nora watched it bounce lazily away. They both ran off in separate directions. Her teacher opened the door. When Nora saw me, she came running. I picked her up. Her teacher told me she ate lots of banana bread and lots of cheese. She asked if I could bring some mittens for Nora. I realized I'd forgot to leave them there. I showed her they were in my pocket. I would leave them in her cubby. I sat Nora on the bench. We put her boots back on, her jacket, and her hat. Bear hat, fuzzy, Dada hat, she said. On the way home, she told me all the names of her friends over and over again. We came to the house with the deer statues on the lawn. "Deer, deer, deer," she said. We came home. I carried her to the fridge. She took her bottle, chugging it on the way back upstairs. I changed her out of her clothes and dressed her into some pajamas. I wiped a drop of milk that had fallen onto her cheek. I took the elastics from her pigtails, careful not to pull her hair. I gave her her bunny. I closed the curtains. We sat in the rocking chair. We read the new bunny book we got from the library once, twice, and then 3 times. She pointed out where all the carrots were. She wanted to read it a 4th time, but I was able to distract her with her Elmo doll. I put her down to bed, switched on her white noise, and said goodnight. I went into my office and sat and watched her on the baby monitor. She fell asleep within a minute or 2. I sat in my chair and wrote what came to me, and when she woke up, I went in to see her. "Shoes, shoes," she said. "Toes, Nora toes. Teeth, teeth, teeth," she said. I opened the blinds. She showed me her bunny and her Elmo doll. She wanted me to take them and then give them back to her. "Teeth, teeth," she yelled again. I told her we would brush our teeth after we changed her diaper. She screamed and tried to squirm away. I put on a YouTube video for her, Miss Rachel and Elmo singing about the colors of the rainbow. I changed her and dressed her in some fresh clothes. I took her to sit on the bathroom counter. I gave her a toothbrush. She handed me mine. I turned the tap on to trickle as low as it would. We brushed our teeth. "Bubbles!" she shouted. "Bubbles!" She laughed when she saw the toothpaste in my mouth. We spit into the sink, and then she said, "All done." I took her down and we went down the hall to the bedroom where Mama was working. Nora climbed onto the bed, feeling the fuzzy blanket. Miriam gave her a hug. She played with the baseball toy that we kept on the bedside. She reached her hand out, asking for the sleeping cat stuffed animal. I turned to reach it, and then Miriam gasped and tried to grab Nora, but couldn't get her in time. Nora fell off of the bed, hitting her chin on the way down. She began to cry, airlessly at first. I leapt towards her, picking her up off of the ground, touching her face, her forehead, her cheeks, her nose, her mouth. She then let out the loudest scream I'd ever heard her make. I rocked her back and forth, trying to shush her like when she was an infant, but I could feel that she was not an infant anymore. She cried hysterically, her mouth filled with blood. I could see the redness of the scratches on her nose and above her lip. I told her she was okay, that it was okay, over and over again, holding her head close to me. We took her back to her room. We held her near the window to see the dogs and the cars on the street. It distracted her for a moment until a wave of pain brought her back to her cry. I handed her to Miriam. She held her in the rocking chair, calmly cleaning the new blood that was there, singing to her, rocking her back and forth. After Nora had her snack, we drove to the store to get her a new bear hat. We found one that was very similar to the last one, but this one was fuzzier and warmer. I stayed with Nora while Miriam tried some clothes on. We went to the shoe section. Nora took every pair of shoes off the shelf until she found a pair of bright pink sequined Uggs. She took her shoes off and did her best to put the Uggs on. I helped her into them. They went up past her knees. She shuffled her feet and screamed joyfully. I tried to take her back to see what Miriam was doing, but she thrashed and yelled to get back to the shoes. It seemed that I could not control her. Instead, all I could do was make room for her to destroy. "Fine, let's keep playing then," I said. I knelt down beside her, trying to make sure she didn't hit her head on the corners of any of the shelves. She took the boots off and put them back on again and again. She seemed to prefer wearing them on the wrong feet. In a momentary break from the chaos, she looked up at me, and I felt that I was seen for what I felt like the first time in my life, for who I was, in a way that was entirely pure, without judgment. And I felt that I saw her equally, without judgment, with total acceptance for who she was. We found a big mirror and walked up to it. She banged on it and laughed. I picked her up and she screamed and tried to break free, but it was enough. She reached her hand to get back to the shoes. She pulled at all the fabrics that we passed and we went back to go find her mom. This routine continued, more or less, day after day, and as the world took shape around her, I felt a love that overflowed everything that I was. I sat in the psychiatrist's office. waiting for my appointment, unable to fill the void in me that had brought me here before. It had been replaced by the love I had for this daughter of mine. She had shown me a new way of being. The meeting was short. I explained how things had been, and we agreed that it seemed like the best thing to do was to keep doing what I had been. I had some time before I needed to get home, before Nora would wake up from her nap. I was near the art gallery. I decided to stop in and see one of the new exhibits that I've been looking forward to. I had little patience for what was there. There was one photo that I recognized. I was reminded of a younger version of myself, how I coveted that image. I remembered how I looked for meaning in that image then, sure that it must be there somewhere. But looking at that image again, I could see now there was nothing there. Instead, what I noticed more than anything was how the paper warbled inside the frame. There was a statue, a bit taller than I was, a man cast in iron. It didn't seem to mean much to me, but I was critical of the rust that had formed on it. The cast iron pan I had at home, I was so careful with it, to dry it properly every time I used it for all these years, so that it would not rust. There were some cartoons that I liked, a simple drawing of a book, some rain clouds, a strange character. I thought of the drawings Nora and I had been doing together, the joy of being able to color with her, our llamas and happy faces and scribbles, those pictures in the notebook we were filling up, how together me and her were so much better at this than any of the shit I saw in that room. I stopped at the McDonald's on the way back home. It was in an underground food court. People from all walks of life were there, delivery drivers, homeless, students, mothers and daughters, seniors, construction workers, office workers, myself. I stood in the line, annoyed by how crowded it was. I ordered a small coffee with 2 creams. Finally, I didn't upsize to the medium. Maybe that was my character arc, if anything, of what this book had been. Finally, ordering the small, like I knew I should. I ordered a McDouble as well, with extra ketchup. It cost $4.96 for everything. I was impressed with myself for keeping my order under $5. I took the paper bag and looked through all the seats. I didn't take one of the 4-seaters, thinking it would be rude to take up all that space, but there was nothing else. So I went back to get it, but some woman took it. I walked around again, eventually sitting in the handicapped spot near the garbage can. I unwrapped the hamburger, was happy to see how the ketchup smeared out of it. I went onto my cell phone as I ate. I looked at my chess app. I've been on a winning streak for a few games, probably the best I'd ever done. But the last move I'd made was so idiotic. I lost my queen for nothing, and now I was surely fucked. I looked at the people around me. I was reminded, for some reason, of that iron statue that I'd seen. How the foreskin on it seemed to envelop him entirely. How strange it was, I thought. As I understood, that was actually the natural way of being. But when I was born, they had taken a knife and cut that part of me away, throwing it into the trash like any other useless thing. That way of being, how unfamiliar it was to me. I was inauthentic at the core of my being. This attempt at manhood that I'd made in my life, the essence of fatherhood, where it all began, how I'd gotten myself into all of this in the first place. I sat with all these strangers, eating my hamburger, and I could see how ordinary life could be. I could see that I used to be an outsider, posing as an ordinary man, but it seemed that now I was as ordinary as anyone else. Who I was, what I wanted, every single person around me had their own version of being the center of the universe. How little any of us really mattered. We knew we were nothing, but still we needed to find a way to assign meaning to what we were. That was the fiction we needed. And so, I messaged Miriam as I finished my hamburger, letting her know where I was, and that I would be home before Nora was awake.